Diaz-Canel get picked?
Yeah, over these other guys. I mean,
yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, it seems like he was kind of groomed and picked early on, right? When you're trying to replace yourself in that kind of position, and when you're looking for someone to replace someone as charismatic as Fidel, you don't want someone who's going to overshadow the Castro legacy, right? You want someone kind of neutral, who is a pencil pushing bureaucrat, who is going to be, be very deferent and accept sort of the rule of the party. And I think they pegged him as somebody who would do that, who, he was cool in that he like took notes on an iPad, which like nobody did. So there, like,
you've got an Apple Pencil, one of those things?
No, not quite. But it was just like, whoa, an iPad. Like, we still have 3G, and this guy has, and I think the island barely had 3G at the time. Yeah. He would really, I mean, capitalism at its finest right there, like Apple products.
Although he didn't like taking notes, yeah.
They've infiltrated the party, the highest realms of the party. So I think it was that, he had this edge. He was younger. He was in his late 50s. Ooh, we had a young one. And he was just very good at what he had done, not a controversial guy, just he was a pencil pusher, a bureaucrat. And he had done good work in his home province of Santa Clara. Like, he had a solid record. And I think they just said, we can count on you to continue to push forward the goals of the revolution, and reforms. I think they agreed. Like, I even want to give credit to the old guys in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. Like, even they know kind of like this thing, it's going to go bust if you don't push things forward. And so he was the neutral, sort of safe choice.
Yeah, you need a pencil pusher to fix things up without he doesn't give like the 4-day speeches like Fidel, right? He's not like...
No, which, to be honest, those 4-day speeches, if you go through some of those transcripts, like, they're full of some gems. Fidel he's a
blowhard. I've seen one of them.
He was hardcore, and he just had crazy ideas. Like, he was like the ultimate superlative, right? Like, he just wanted Cuba to be the best at everything. It was like, we are a Caribbean nation, and most of the time cows don't really survive here because it's really hot and it's not a climate that's very conducive to big healthy cows. But like, we hold the world record for the cow that has produced the most milk in the entire world. Like, they do, right? And like, this was Fidel, because yes, he loved dairy, and he was obsessed with ice cream and butter and cheese. And, after the fall of the Soviet Union, these things, you have to choose. Like, are you going to have butter, or are you going to have ice cream, or are you going to have cheese? And he chose ice cream. And you needed to up the milk production. And he just...
a child? Like, that's what my kids would pick.
Well, no. Well, the official explanation is that it's like highly caloric, right? So when, there are food shortages, something that has a lot of calories and a lot of sugar is going to help keep people ticking, right? But ultimately, it was really just that Fidel liked milkshakes, and he wanted to have them. This is true. Like, he had them every day. I think it was the former Hilton that his government stole from the U.S. He would go and he would have a milkshake every day, and the CIA actually tried to kill him through one of his milkshakes.
That was like that was like a famous thing back in the
Operation Mr. Softy.
Yeah, poison.
Yeah, there were lots of ways they tried to kill him.
It was like the Godfather 3, the poisonous cannoli. It was a lame way to kill someone. But...
Well, it didn't work. Apparently, whatever poison they were going to use got frozen into the wall of the freezer. And when they tried to get it out, because it was frozen into the wall of the freezer, when they tried to get it out, it cracked, and so they couldn't get it into his drink and into his milkshake, and it was just like a failed, like so many others, right? But yeah, he really was a character. I mean, as from a purely journalistic perspective, as far as like color and, crazy quotes, like, he'd be way more interesting than Diaz-Canel, who kind of just regurgitates, what the older guys say. But he is the safe choice.
So reforms, like, what might, because I did see that in 2018 they wrote a new constitution.
Yep.
Was that Diaz-Canel's kind of like first thing when he came in as president?
No, I mean, anything that's like new in Cuba is usually 20 years old. It usually means that, and it was something that they had been working on for a very long time. I wouldn't say it was exactly 20 years, but yes, like these new monetary reforms that took place on January 1st of this year, 20 years in the making. Like they were supposed to do it 20 years ago, and they just couldn't figure out how to do it or when the optimal moment was to do it. Obviously, when you're going to unify and devalue a currency, the best time to do it is when your economy is booming and doing well, so you don't have inflation and you have, other jobs that can absorb all the unemployed. But they basically were with their backs against the wall, right? Because you've got Venezuela that's a mess right now. And Venezuela was sort of one of the big sources of income for Cuba, right? Cuba sends doctors to Venezuela. In exchange, Venezuela gives Cuba crude oil, which Cuba then refines and sells all over the world. And that's how they get foreign currency. And it's a lot of money. It's a big part of their economy. And of course, that's gone down. And so Cuba doesn't have money to buy stuff anymore. And when you combine that with the effects of the coronavirus and no travel, no Americans coming in buying Chad t-shirts, your economy just plummets, right? So they're in a bad
t-shirt graphs are down, way down.
They're down. And so and so you run into some big problems, and they basically had their backs up against the wall. They're like, we have to reform this currency now. And they also knew that there was this party Congress coming up in April, and if they hadn't gotten this done with, as they'd said, they'd look pretty silly. So they had to do it.